It is like clockwork, isn't it? New year, new laws. How can we change rugby? What can we change to make it better? Let's have a moan about why it's really bad. And we've seen it once again, this time Warren Gatland. You may have seen his article in The Telegraph published last week. When I read it last week, my initial thought was, and am I crazy for thinking this? Is this a little bit anti-South Africa? Is this a reaction to South Africa winning another World Cup? That was my thought when I read the article last week. I thought I won't make the video last week. I'll sit on it for a bit, see if I still think the same. And I do. And I don't think it's just about South Africa. That's not my point. I think this happens quite a lot in general. When teams get really good at something, laws get changed to try and take that special power away from them. And that's sort of what I'm talking about with the positivity, negativity. That's a glass half empty. Oh, we need to change that rather than glass half full. Isn't that amazing that team managed to find that? A great example is Exeter Chiefs. And I would put Rob Baxter very much in the Rassie Erasmus mould in terms of the way that he innovates. Exeter Chiefs were the first team that came up with the Caterpillar Ruck. What an amazing idea. They were the first to come up with it. Now everybody does it. They also won themselves a Premiership and European Cup double in 2020, I think it was, by having an incredible ability to score tries from close range after phase after phase after phase of pressure. And then when they beat all the big guns, they beat Toulouse, they won the European Cup and the Premiership, an amazing story for that club. Then the law got changed all of a sudden. Rather than other teams trying to find a way to stop it or to become as good as them, the law was changed and it took that away from Exeter. And suddenly, if you were held up over the try line, that was a goal line dropout, not an attacking scrum, as it was previously. So I'm okay with changing laws. In fact, I'll give you some examples in a bit of laws that I think have been really good when they've been changed. But I think there's always a danger of the law of the unintended consequence. You try and solve one problem, you end up causing another, maybe bigger problem. And do I need to say any more with that than the TMO bunker? So I want to know what you think on laws in general, on what Warren Gatland had to say. Go and read the article that he said in the Telegraph yourself. But if I could summarise it, I would say that what Warren Gatland wanted were fewer kicks, fewer scrums and scrum resets, and fewer replacements. He also talked about doing away with the mark inside the 22 as well. And when I thought about all of those things, I thought, hold on a minute. Those are all things that the world champion South African side used brilliantly to their advantage. They had the best tactical kicking game and they had the best scrum. They have the best scrum in World Rugby and they have the most impactful bench in World Rugby as well because they have the best depth. And you have to consider the fact that, and I don't begrudge Warren Gatland for this, maybe Warren Gatland is not talking as someone trying to improve the game of rugby overall for everybody. Maybe he's trying to improve the fortunes of his Welsh team. That is his job after all. And would those law changes he mentioned make life easier for Wales? Absolutely. They don't have the depth of South Africa, so they don't have the ability to bring great players off the bench. They don't have as many great props, so they're not the scrummaging force they were. And at the moment, without fly half options, they also are lacking 10s who can control a game with a kicking game. So I think I don't want to say it's purely cynical, because I'm sure Warren Gatland honestly is trying to make the game better and he cares about the game. He's got a long history in the game, but his job is, and we shouldn't forget his job, is to help Wales, not help everybody. So I think that might be an element. And when I think back to the World Cup, do you remember the whole faff with the 7-1 split? That, like Matt Williams, that the Aussie guy but works on the telly in Ireland, and he said it was morally wrong. And there were a load of people that were kicking off about the 7-1 split. I just thought, wow, what an amazing and brave thing to do. Because I saw that as a trade-off. And I see everything on a rugby pitch always as a trade-off. In fact, look at life. Life is a game of trade-offs, isn't it? Rassie Erasmus and Jack Nienaber went with the 7-1 split. Yeah, they've got 7 forwards that they can bring off the bench to make a big impact. But hey, you know what the trade-off is? You get a couple of injuries in your back line and you look like a bit of a plonker and your team can be really badly exposed. It's the same like at ruck time. Do you compete at rucks or do you not compete? If you compete, you could steal the ball, you could slow the opposition ball down. But if they do get the ball, there's more spaces because your defence hasn't got as many people on its feet. If you don't compete, your defensive line is more solid, but you've got to absorb waves of attacking pressure because you're not going to get the ball back. So it's trade-offs. And rugby is a game of chess. And yep, I know you're appreciating the picture that I managed to find. Yes, I did just Google rugby chess. And that was the best picture that came up. Sebastian Chabal, big chess enthusiast, who knew? But rugby is a game of chess, and South Africa in the Rugby World Cup played their key pieces on their board at the right time, in the right way, and that is why they came through. But remember, they only came through by the narrowest of margins, and tying it to those law changes that Warren Gatland has suggested, that going for a scrum from a mark in that quarter-final against France, one of the moments of last year. What an amazing bit of rugby theatre. And an amazing innovation. And rather than going, oh, well, they did that, or let's get rid of marks in the 22, why can't we just say, how awesome was that? They found a way to exploit one of their strengths. When you think about and I was in the stand in the Stade de France in Paris. In fact, I was just over, I think it was just out of shot, just up there in the stand. And it was heartbreaking, let me tell you, as an Englishman, to watch Vincent Koch and Oxenche marmalise the English props to win that scrum that won South Africa the game by 1 point. Still hurts. But as a bit of sporting theatre, it was amazing. There was nobody complaining, oh, scrums are boring. Scrums are not boring. Scrums are amazing theatre. I will get on to how I think we can improve it without law changes. But no one was complaining about the scrums there. And it was incredible. No one was complaining about kicks during France v South Africa. Maybe the greatest game I've ever seen. And one of the incredible, if I can speak, one of the incredible tactical things that South Africa did was those crossfield bombs. How awesome were they? Were they led to was it Kurtley Arendse and to Damien Diolende's try? Amazing. Nobody was complaining about kicking then. And there is an element where your glass is half full or your glass is half empty. And mine is half full. I was loving those spectacular moments in the rugby. But if you want to think proactively, why was no one complaining about scrums and kicks during those big World Cup games? It was just tense and incredible. Well, the reason no one was complaining is because all of those moments mattered so much. I remember saying when I was watching the Ireland v South Africa game in the pool stages, it's like tiny moments felt like big moments. One scrum felt like it could be the difference between winning and losing, and as a result you're on the edge of your seat watching it. That's what we need to create. We need to create more drama. We need to make rugby moments matter more, not have more laws. And we've got the Six Nations coming up just around the corner. Can't wait for it. How can we make it better? Have relegation. Because be honest, do you ever, or have you ever, when you've got a weekend of games, but you've also got to spend some time with the family, you've got work to do, you've got to travel somewhere. How many times have you thought, do you know what? I won't watch the Italy game. I'll catch up with the highlights on that and I'll watch the others. I've done it. And I watch loads of rugby. And I've done it. Because sometimes the game doesn't matter enough. You introduce relegation, not only is it the right thing to do by the Tier 2 nations and the objective of growing the sport long term, but it's the right thing to do for making moments matter more. And that would improve rugby massively without needing to change a single law that's already on the books. I say the same with the Premiership. You need to have relegation and promotion. I worked on the Premiership from 2015, so I worked there when there was relegation and when there wasn't. And honestly, it's chalk and cheese, it's night and day, and you have to have it back. And the only people that are telling you it shouldn't come back are the owners of the clubs that are already in the league. And a little bit like Warren Gatland with his law change suggestions, they do have another motive, and it might not be for the betterment of the sport and for the game. So that's got to happen. And so again, less rugby, more rugby moments that matter. Scarcity is valuable. The NFL is the best example of this, but the Champions Cup is a great example in the wrong direction. They've expanded the competition, more games, more teams, and they've diluted the quality. The knockout stages of the Champions Cup are amazing. Absolutely brilliant. The pool stages, who cares? Make more moments matter more, and you don't have to change any laws to make that happen. And that will alleviate a lot of the concerns that people have about scrums, about kicking. Because as I say, those knockout stages in the World Cup, the final between La Rochelle and Leinster in the Champions Cup, nobody was complaining about scrums or kicking then because it mattered so much. So on to laws specifically then, because as I say, I'm not totally against law changes per se. I've talked about the law of unintended consequences, but there's lots of things you can change to make the game better without changing any laws. Well, I'll tell you one thing you can do is you can simplify things by deciding, is something a law or not? The put in at the scrum. Is that a law that it has to go straight, or is it not? Because in the law book, which is about that thick, it says the ball has to go in straight. And when I coach my son's team and they play on a Sunday, or when I coach the university team in Manchester that I coach and they play on a Wednesday, the ball has to go in straight. International rugby, chuck it straight back to the second rows. Hookers don't even hook anymore. Now, I'm not being it was better in the old days, the ball should go in straight. But the point is, if you're not going to require that the ball goes in straight at a scrum, take it out of the law book and standardise it all the way down. That'd make it simpler, or actually enforce the law that's written there. So that'd be one thing you can do, just to make things simpler. And the simplification top to bottom is just sometimes about principles. So as I mentioned, it's always this time of year, when the year comes to an end, that people come up with their suggestions about what they would change. 2 years ago, it was Joe Marler saying he wants to get rid of the caterpillar ruck. I mentioned that Rob Baxter at Exeter Chiefs is a little bit like Razzie Erasmus. It was Exeter Chiefs that came up with the caterpillar ruck first. You now see it in every game at every level. They were the first people to do it. And I remember thinking at the time, what an amazing idea. I remember everyone was looking going, what? What an amazing idea. The law was brought in, and here's an example of a law that I actually quite like. The 5-second rule. So the referee calls use it, you got 5 seconds. I'm on board with that. I think it's great. And here's an example of rugby at the weekend. How could rugby get better without changing any laws? Just enforce the laws we already have. This is Leicester Tigers against Bath. You'll see on the clock it says 9 minutes and 58 seconds, is it? So the ruck is over, the contest is done, Bath have won the ball, the referee's in a perfect position to see what's going on, and he should call use it then. So 9 minutes 58, meaning if the ball's not gone by 10 minutes and 3 seconds, turnover, scrum Leicester. What do you think is going to happen? Yeah, you already know, don't you? The referee doesn't call use it now. He waits a few seconds before he calls use it, meaning Bath have got plenty of time to make the nice caterpillar, make a nice opportunity for the scrum half to exit, and it's a full 10 seconds before the ball is actually out at the ruck. Now, if you just enforce the law as it is written in the book right now, then you completely change the game, because all of a sudden Bath cannot form that caterpillar ruck, and the scrum half might not kick. He might think, actually, do you know what, I'm not going to risk being charged down, so I'm just going to play. And then you get the game you want by enforcing the laws we already have, not by adding loads more laws in. Do you get where I'm going? And I've got a video, actually, I think I can show you if I can get it up, if you just bear with me. I like to make these videos and just have it chatty and conversational. I don't like doing any edits, so I have to... Here we go, got it. Anyway, fine, here we are. So this is from the Six Nations of quite a few years back now. I don't want to use any recent videos because there's a habit of videos getting taken down off YouTube, if you do, so I'm scared to. So we'll see, fingers crossed for this one. But this is the Six Nations a few years ago, but this does look like modern rugby. Not that long ago. It's Wales against France in the Six Nations. As you can see, just over 13 minutes on the clock. France are about to have a snipe, but the ball's going to be knocked on by Machino, is it, trying to pass the ball to Vakatawa. And it's going to be a knock-on, and there you go. Wayne Barnes has just blown the whistle saying scrum. So 13 minutes and 34 seconds. Ball gets called scrum. This is rugby in 2024. And this can be solved. Now, it's important to take your time with the engagement process of the scrum. There's a reason why that was changed, and it isn't a free-for-all like it was before to make it safer for these big men. But you can absolutely speed this process up. We're now at 20 seconds and no sign of a scrum being there. All the players were already there because they'd just come from a line-out. It wasn't like someone had to run all the way across the pitch. No second rows in, and we're at over 30 seconds. Now, 35 seconds, nearly 40 seconds before the second rows are actually in. Flankers are just getting down now. We're closing in on 1 minute since the scrum was called before an engagement, which then Wayne Barnes has to call up because it wasn't the correct engagement. Now, again, I'm actually okay with the actual engagement process being the bit you take your time over. For safety, that makes sense. But come on, we can speed the rest up. And you can incentivise that by just saying if a team's not there and ready to go, free kick, other team. Players will soon get there quick enough and get themselves down into position quicker. This, it's not hard. And one of the reasons why all these laws come up, people talk about, oh, too many scrums. No, it's not too many scrums. Scrums take too long. Scrums are brilliant. Too many kicks. No, you're just frustrated about the ball in playtime. And how can we elevate that? And the replacements, oh, it's too many people that are fit and big and all the rest of it. No. If you start speeding stuff like this up, then the size and shape of a player will have to change. Otherwise, you'll get exposed, and that creates a balance and creates opportunities and it creates costs. So we're at a minute. Over a minute now, and we haven't even had the scrum. And I won't play you the whole thing, but what basically happens is what basically happens is after basically 2 minutes from the start or getting on for, Wayne Barnes gives a penalty to France, and then that penalty, Jules Plisson tries to have a kick, misses. Dan Bigger does a 22-metre dropout. Basically, from when the knock-on happened, so the ball is dead, to when the ball is next live, after the dropout, is 3 minutes and 10 seconds of a match. And this is something which is so easy to sort out. And I think it would solve a lot of the problems which are making people come out with articles about we need to change this law, we need to change that law. No, we just need to have a bit of a mindset shift and enforce the laws that are already there and just try and make the game more of a spectacle within the laws that already exist. That's my thoughts anyway. I'd love to know what you think. It's a little bit of a longer video than I normally do, so your feedback really welcome. And get stuck in. If you haven't already, hit subscribe on the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and I will see you on the next one.